Hey, I got a quick question for you. Are you showing up as the expert authority in your business, making sure that your message is on point and your branding is reflective of your go-to authorityness? Hi, I'm Christine Blosdale, your expert authority business coach, and I have a way for you to rate your expert authority prowess. And you can check it out at expertauthorityquiz.com. It's fun, it's easy, and it's something that you really should be doing to see where you level up. If you want to establish trust with your audience and potential customers and clients, you might want to take this quiz. Once again, head on over to expertauthorityquiz.com. That's expertauthorityquiz.com. Welcome to the Expert Authority Coach Podcast, the one-stop spot for entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, and business owners just like you who are ready to rise, shine, and finally be seen as the go-to authority in their field. I'm your host, Christine Blosdale, also known as the Expert Authority Coach, and my mission is to help you build a magnetic brand, grow your visibility, and turn your expertise into real, lasting influence and income. If you want to dive deeper, head on over to my website, expertauthoritycoach.com, where you can explore all the groovy stuff that I've created for you. And you can even book a free discovery call with me. I'd love to hear from you. Once again, head on over to expertauthoritycoach.com to book that free call today. Alrighty, so let's jump into today's episode. Hey, welcome back to the Expert Authority Coach Podcast. I am their Expert Authority Coach, Christine Blosdale, and I help overwhelmed entrepreneurs, business owners, authors get the word out about their business. But most importantly, I help them get seen, get heard, get trusted, and then get paid for what they already know. And my guest today is such a perfect guest for the show because her specialty is working with folks who are ADHD, diagnosed as ADHD, maybe not diagnosed as ADHD, especially since a lot of women are, in later in life, figure that out. But the special superpower, I know because my wife has ADHD and I have several clients as well, the amazing things that they can do, but also those negative thoughts and stories that roll around their head. We're going to dive into what my guest has to talk about today and also her book. My guest is Dr. Jennie Byrne, who is a neuroscientist, a truth teller, and pragmatic futurist who brings her expertise to conversations about human behavior and ADHD. Her latest book is called ADHD in Professionals, Embracing Your Brain. Oh, that makes me want to cry because that subtitle especially is just so powerful. Dr. Byrne, she explores in this book how ADHD often appears in high achieving adults, including physicians, executives, entrepreneurs, and other leaders who may look successful on the outside while struggling in private. Drawing on her dual background in medicine and neuroscience, Dr. Byrne brings both scientific rigor and real world clarity to conversations about mental health and performance. So, Dr. B, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, I'm sure like little Jenny maybe didn't know that she was going to become, a doctor and work in this particular specialty. But have you always been quite curious about the brain and about how we work, or is this something that later came in later in life and you were like, oh, this is juicy. I need to get into this.
Yeah, I tell a story in the book. I must have been interested in the brain because when I was in middle school, I somehow got a sheep brain and was dissecting it at home on the kitchen table, and my
Oh my
parents were
God.
horrified. So I must have been interested back then, but I did a lot of other things and didn't really get reintroduced to the topic until college. I took a course called Introduction to Brain and Behavior. And at the time, that was kind of a new idea to have an interdisciplinary class with neuroscience and psychology and biology. And I really just loved it. And so my career has really circled around that topic ever since.
Now I'm no spring chicken, as my grandmother used to say, and I'm going to be 62 this year, And now growing up, it's interesting because growing up, we never heard about ADHD, never heard about autism or the spectrum either. Is this something is it something that's relatively new, or is it something that's just it's been around for these individuals have this unique ability, and also and sometimes in their own mind they think of it as also a disability. But has this been around for quite some time?
As far as we can tell, ADHD, or what I like to think of as an ADHD type of brain, and the whole disorder strength, conversation we can talk about, that's kind of debated. But this type of brain has probably been around forever. And we think it's about 5 to 10% of the adult population. So it's a lot. And if you have a variant of a brain, we have variants in all parts of our body, right? Blood vessel, everything is a variant. And it's been around for a long time for a good reason, because in certain environments, these types of brains can be extremely helpful and necessary, probably to humanity. And that's probably why it's up to 10% of the population.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I know it's interesting. I haven't met a person yet who kind of wears ADHD as a badge of honor, right? Because maybe they're fitting in a quote unquote neurotypical. I love that when people say neurotypical because I'm like, what is neurotypical, right? But it, fitting into a world, it's kind of like a square peg trying to be fitting into a round hole, right? The way that we set up our education, our structure of society, and then schooling, and then work, and all of that, it can be quite counterintuitive for folks who have ADHD brains. But can we talk a bit about that feeling with your clients, and I know again from the people that I work with that how do you deal with that feeling that they're broken, when they come to you, that feeling that I'm not right, or I'm broken, I'm stupid. I've heard that so many times as well.
Mhm. Well, first of all, one big myth out there is that you can't be intelligent, that you can't be high achieving, that you can't be a successful person with ADHD. And that's just a
Yeah.
myth. So I want to just say that right away. That's a big myth. The fact that people feel like something is wrong is, I try to look at it as it's a good place to start. So people come to see me. Sometimes they're diagnosed, sometimes not. They just feel like something's wrong. Maybe they've tried therapy, it's not really helping. They feel like their life could be different. They have a little talk track in their head of if only I could get the wash done, if only I could get this job done on time, if only, if only, if only. That's a little flag that it may be an ADHD style brain. So the fact that something's wrong, if it prompts you to get help to understand your brain so that you can thrive, not just survive, I try to see that as a positive. But yes, over time, if you've been undiagnosed and untreated and you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, even 70, 80 years old, it can be quite shocking, but I've seen people really learn how to thrive at any age. So I encourage you, even if you feel like something's wrong or you feel like something's broken, it's never too late to embrace your brain and learn how to thrive. But yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard on people when they're trying to fit into an environment that's not optimal for their brain. It really
Wow.
is. And a lot of people that are high achieving find ways to do that. They cope, they compensate. The term masking is popular now, like they're high masking. Same
Correct.
as autism, we'll use that terminology, but it's exhausting. That takes a toll. And sometimes where it really shows up is actually at home or with friends or with community. And so sometimes at work, actually, they're kind of doing okay because that's where they're putting all their energy. But when they come home or their relationships or they're a parent, and sometimes that's actually where things are falling down and they're really struggling.
Oh, you said that so well, and it's understandable as well. So, what are some other characteristics that you would say that someone with an
Mhm.
ADHD style brain, maybe some of the things that they experience, or as someone who's a loved one of maybe a child or a spouse that they might notice?
Yeah, and I'll put these in very pragmatic. So there's kind of the academic definition. I won't do that. This is kind of the practical definition. If you have an ADHD style brain, typically you thrive in situations where your brain has a lot of dopamine or
Mm-hmm.
norepinephrine. So high risk, high intensity, urgent, things that have a lot of excitement and a lot of dopamine. So a lot of people, for example, procrastinate until the last minute because then they get that dopamine rush of the deadline.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
sometimes with that
Right.
dopamine rush, they can crank stuff out like you wouldn't believe. But that's again at a price. So that's one thing I see with a lot of ADHD brains. I also see that they're very sensitive often to different stimuli in their environment. So sounds,
Oh,
smells,
yeah.
tastes.
Don't eat around a person. Don't chew. Yeah.
Exactly. So, like for a kid in the classroom and they hear someone click, click, clicking down the hall, one of my interviewees told me in school they couldn't not listen to people walking down the hall. It was that difficult. So, they're sensitive. And sometimes they're actually very sensitive to other people's emotional states.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're actually quite empathetic. And so, sometimes you'll see that their mood is actually a very reactive mood. So, when something good happens, like they're on top of the world, they're super happy, and then 5 minutes later something bad happens, and they've crashed and everything is terrible. So their mood is very reactive, and sometimes they're told they have ultra rapid bipolar symptoms, and most of the time that's not true. Most of the time it's just ADHD, but it looks like your mood is up and down all over the place. That's a common one. Being very sensitive to rejection. There's actually rejection sensitivity dysphoria. There's a term for it, being very sensitive to that. And then on the flip side, some of the real strengths are, being very creative. It's a very common thread, being able to see things in different ways, to connect the dots in different ways. Sometimes they're very charismatic. And they can really be the social glue of a team. Sometimes they're the ones that are really optimistic and really hardworking, even if it seems inefficient, like they're the ones that help the team get across the finish line. So it's a little different for everyone. Obviously, it's not all the same, but those are a couple of the things you might notice.
Yeah. Well, and one big thing that I notice is, and we, with my wife, we, affectionately call it the Dory syndrome, where, you know, w- sh- we'll be doing one thing and then it's like, oh, there's a shiny object over here, and then over here, let's do this and let's do that, and sometimes I have to slow, like, oh, because I'm very much that person who I can get to things. I just need to start on and finish it, right? So you can put me on a path, and I need to start it, and then I can finish it. Then I can go on to the next thing. And so I've noticed, not just with my wife, but also with my clients, where it's this kind of a pinball feeling, like you're in a pinball machine and going from one thing to another really quickly. Is that sort of that dopamine hit that they're getting, by going from one
Yeah,
thing to
there's
another?
they're sensitive to novelty. So something that's a novel stimulus, whatever that may be, is very distracting and attractive.
Yeah.
And I like to give an example. Some of the people I've worked with and some of the people I interviewed, for example, a physician, when they have ADHD, physicians tend to be in the operating room, in the emergency room, or the intensive care unit. So you can imagine when somebody's very sensitive to noticing things and acting quickly and bouncing, like sometimes that's actually really helpful when things move fast and they're very high risk. But that same physician, if you put them in an office and you tell them to do email, they may actually just completely fall apart. And I've seen that firsthand. Sometimes people ironically get promoted and then they have to start doing more paperwork and more email and more bureaucratic tasks, and they actually fall apart
Yeah.
with the promotion.
Yeah, they're like, no, that's not me. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, so in what way, how do you help people who are struggling with this, and they don't see it as a badge of honor, they don't see it as a superpower, but they're really struggling because of the work, and you work with professionals, so I know they can apply what you're working with them on right away. But yeah, what are some things that you do with them to help guide? I know it's an individual basis, but
Yeah, and you
um,
mentioned entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurism can be a great fit for an ADHD brain, but you're your own boss. So
yes.
you're, you know, so it's
Right.
like you have ADHD, but you're also the boss of someone with ADHD because you're your own boss. So you do have to be a little careful. But what I would say is the first step is to get the data. So first of all, do you have an ADHD brain? Do you have an autistic brain? Do you have what kind of brain do you have? And sometimes that means looking at the physical side too. So when I work up somebody for ADHD, I'm also asking a lot of medical questions about their physical health, about their sleep, about, chronic illnesses they may have and their environment. So the first part of the workup is to look at them kind of medically as a whole person,
Yeah.
look at the environment they're in. And then I like to do computer test of attention, which is more like a data point. Like if we were going to check your blood pressure, I'd put a cuff on and check your blood pressure, right?
Correct.
If we think you might have ADHD, I want to do a test. I want to look at the computer test to get some objective data. That doesn't make the diagnosis. Same as if blood pressure, you walk in, you have a high blood pressure, doesn't automatically mean you just start taking blood pressure pills.
Right.
So I like to get the data first. And then once we have the data, we can say, okay, I can see using this test and what I know about you that your brain is like this. Your brain has a shifted circadian rhythm, very common in ADHD. Your brain wants to go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 10 a.m. Well, is that going to fit your life? Well, you got little kids, you got to get to school in the morning. So maybe we're going to have to phase shift you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at your brain. Maybe in work environments, you do very well with short blocks of time, but you have to just get the distractions out. So, how can we get people to stop DMing you when you need to do your focused work?
Right.
Right? Okay, let's look at your environment. You come home at night. I have a lot of moms who are professionals. They come home, it's expected that they get dinner on the table and do all this other stuff. Well, maybe you don't get dinner on the table. Maybe somebody else is going to put dinner on the table. If that's creating emotional meltdowns because your ADHD brain needs that time, maybe you don't put the dinner on the table. So I really like to look at the whole big picture. And the assessment I do is a little more thorough than what most people do. So my advice is if you think you have ADHD or you do, I wouldn't actually go to a primary care doctor unless they happen to be specialized in ADHD. So if you don't know where to start, my website does have some free resources you can get. So that's my website is constellationpllc.com, and you can put your email to I'll email you some free resources. But if you don't know where to start, sometimes just starting to read is a good place to start. But if you're ADHD, sometimes you have trouble reading. Sometimes hooking up with a coach that
Yeah.
specializes in ADHD is a good place to start too.
I know with my wife, she enjoys audiobooks because
Yes.
also she likes to multitask. So while she's driving to work or going, she'll listen to the audiobooks much more. She can get through that kind of content way easier than actual a physical book to read, right? She doesn't have time for that. But she can do it while
So
she's
true.
on her way to do something else. Is your book available in audiobook format yet?
Not yet. It just came out 2 weeks ago, so the
Oh,
audiobook isn't quite ready, but it is on Amazon and it is designed for an ADHD reader. So if
okay,
you have
great.
ADHD, you pick up the book, it's designed to be read like you can read one chapter, you can jump around, you can go
Yeah.
to the end. It's designed hopefully to be very ADHD
Oh,
friendly to the reader.
I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. Okay, so that we and we'll put a link in the show notes to your book there on Amazon and also the website too. We'll get the URL again so we can include that. One thing one thing that I notice living with an ADHD brain, lovely woman, is especially with her. Now, maybe it's not everybody, but exercise is really important. And whereas, I'm the lazy one. I'm like the thought of going to the gym in the morning. But she's gone. She's at the gym right now. Okay, left at like in the dark. But that's really important for her, not only just for her physical body, but I think it's also for her brain as well. Is that something that you also take a look at?
100%. And I would say you're correct that for ADHD in particular, I mean, exercise is good for all of us, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't
Yes.
have to be the
Yeah.
gym, it can be whatever, walking, it can be other stuff. But yeah, and it may be that many people with ADHD have a style of ADHD that is somewhat restless. Not necessarily, it doesn't look hyperactive as an adult, which is why I hate that name,
Yeah.
but it's a feeling of internal restlessness. So, for example, some strategies for people who work is if you're in person at the workplace, is it okay to stand up during a meeting? Is it okay to have a fidget in your hand and to have the boss realize, hey, that fidget is helping me pay attention? Or, hey, I can stand up in the middle of the meeting. That's really helping me.
Right.
So, physical movement, even like little spurts of it throughout the day, in addition to the bigger exercise, can be extremely helpful.
Yeah. Well, because you when you were talking about sleep, I know that that is vitally important, and it's important for everyone, but in particular for an ADHD style brain, that sleep is vital, isn't it? Because also
Well,
I feel like they're
it
working so
is.
hard. I feel like the brain is working so hard all the time, thinking, and all the different scenarios and everything, and they got to shut down. There's got to be turn off the computer for a little bit.
Well, and the one thing I notice a lot with folks with ADHD is again, their circadian, there's research showing actually that their circadian rhythm is often shifted forward. And so they're tired and falling asleep later than other people, and then they're waking up early. So not only are they shortening the total amount of sleep they get, but they're also disrupting the part of sleep where you get REM sleep, because that's the second half of the night. And the REM sleep is where your memory is consolidated and where your brain is kind of recharging. So if you're getting not enough sleep and you're not getting enough REM sleep, you're setting yourself up to make it even harder on your brain during the day.
And isn't it interesting? Because that's also it's the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about all this stuff that hasn't happened or will happen, maybe I don't know. But it's that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, even 4 o'clock in the morning, going through the lists, right, of all that stuff. That would be very yeah. That would be very exhausting, especially if it's on the regular. You know the
Yeah, so
importance of
sleep
having.
is a notorious challenge for ADHD brains, and it's definitely something I work on a lot. Sometimes it does require medication, sometimes it doesn't. And there's some tips and tricks I've done with melatonin and daylight simulators. And so I have some tricks up my sleeve. Sleep is a notoriously difficult one.
And we mentioned medication, and I wouldn't want to end this show without talking about that. Your thoughts on medication? And I know everybody's different,
Yeah.
but there's a few medications out there for people with ADHD, and I think some of the biggest concerns, folks that I know, it's about this or memory or this feeling that they don't have a good memory, right? And my wife is a real estate agent, and I don't know how I don't know how I can't, I could not deal with all those people, and especially the stress, it's because it's high stress type thing. But remembering their names and what they like and all this other stuff. But what is it when it comes to medication? What are your feelings about it? And are there some new maybe drugs that are out that you feel are promising?
Yeah, so I know it's a hot topic and very debated, and people have strong feelings about medicines, one way or the other. I would say that, I'm a physician, I do prescribe medications. Medicines are just a tool in the toolbox, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not. And that's why you really need somebody who knows what they're doing
Yes.
to
Yeah.
guide you on whether or not to take them. And then the other big myth out there is that the only medicines are things like Ritalin and Adderall that are very well known stimulants. But that's actually not true. There are non stimulant medications for ADHD. There, like you said, are new ones coming out. And then there are treatments that are not medicines. So there is neurofeedback and biofeedback and different kinds of ways of modulating your nervous system that aren't medicine. So yes, medicines are a very valuable tool in the toolkit. I use them, I prescribe them. I think they help some people, but for some people, it's not needed. And the other thing is, life changes. Maybe at one point in your life, you would benefit from medicine, and then life changes and maybe not.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just set it and forget it. Life is always changing. And I always recommend people like work with somebody that you can work with over time, not just like go one
A one
time
shot. Right.
because
Right.
yeah, because your body changes, your mind changes, your environment changes. And so it really is something that, if you have this kind of brain, that's your brain. Like, just embrace it, learn how to work with it, and then honor it as it changes over time.
Well, and especially our brains change also with menopause and perimenopause. And I
Oh,
mean,
big one.
yeah, so I can see that. And what you're doing in your 20s versus what you're doing in your 50s or how your brain works in your 50s can be
Totally
quite
different.
quite different. I really love your approach to this. I love the holistic look at it's so it's not just, you know, this one way of doing things, but really taking a look at the person and their life, their lifestyle, you know, if they have kids, if they don't have kids. I also I think very importantly, and because I know quite a few people with ADHD style brain, we talked about exercise, we talked about sleep, but nutrition. Now you've got some who are really on the dial, like my wife, super healthy, you know, was she's worried about the calories and all that stuff, but also the good fats and all that thing. So she's really dialed in with what she eats. But then on the other flip side, I have known people who maybe aren't eating the healthiest and, you know, like lots of sugars and caffeines and stimulants and things like that. Can you talk? Do you have diet recommendations as well, or nutritional recommendations for people?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's no evidence that a particular diet is going to change your ADHD brain. So I know that there's been some past research on that. It's not like one diet is going to change your brain. However, your general health status can be in jeopardy if you have ADHD because it's harder to do the healthy things. It's harder to, I mean, it takes so much planning and
Yeah.
task completion. It's not easy. So in our culture, sometimes people with ADHD have poor health outcomes, and it's because they don't make the doctor appointment, or maybe they're always late, and so they miss it, and then they don't go back. And then it's very hard. At least, I mean, I'm in the US, like navigating our healthcare system is very difficult, even for non ADHD folks. So your health status is at jeopardy if you can't find a way to get the right preventative care and eat well and sleep well.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say there's no specific dietary recommendation, but I would say overall, like maintaining your health, you are at jeopardy with ADHD. You do have to like put in the effort to get that preventative care, to get your screenings, to get your, medications appropriately if you take medicine. So I wish I could say there was just a food that would help everything, but it's really more, again, that holistic. Like you really just want to be taking good care of yourself.
Well, and it takes time to eat well. You know, it does. To prepare things, to go to the store and all of that stuff. And sometimes time management can be a challenge.
Right.
Just having that, putting that time aside to make sure, and it's really important. And I know that when you feel better from the foods, myself, when I eat well, I feel better. I move better in the world as well, and I can think a little bit clearer as well. as
100%. 100%.
as I have another shot of coffee here. Oh, Dr. Byrne, thank you so much for being with us today. Again, if people want to find out more about the work that you do and even also maybe reach out to you, the best website for them to go to is what?
Yeah. ConstellationPLLC.com. And I offer coaching anywhere in the world. And if you're in the US, I am licensed in 25 states, so I can actually officially practice medicine in 25 states in the US.
Fantastic. Okay. And so anywhere in the world people can reach out to you and get some good advice and guidance. Yeah?
Definitely be happy. And if I'm not the right person, I'll try to get you to the right person.
Ah,
There are a lot of
yeah.
people out here who would love to work with you.
Fantastic. As a coach too, as an expert authority coach, I believe wholeheartedly that way as well. If I'm not the right fit, then I'm going to find somebody that's going to be good for you. My guest today has been Dr. Jennie Byrne. For folks who are interested, we'll put the link to her website in the show notes. Also, really important, I highly suggest that you grab a copy of her book if it's for yourself or for someone that you love. The ADHD and Professionals Embracing Your Brain. That book is available now on Amazon. We'll have links in the show notes. And I'm hoping that the audiobook comes out soon too, Dr. Byrne. We'll be looking,
You
we'll be watching that. But thank you again
got it.
for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I want to
Thank you.
thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, you get to see my beautiful guest. She's right here. If you want more information about this program and all the work that I do, you can go to expertauthoritycoach.com. This podcast, I've been podcasting now for over 10 years, probably maybe 11. And I'm so grateful to have guests like Dr. Byrne on to help open our eyes to the things, the amazing things that we can do as professionals, as entrepreneurs, and how we just need to reach out for that help and assistance when we recognize that somebody can help us. So thanks again so much. And until next time, keep working on that expert authority, because your world, your gift is really needed in the world. Whatever your talent is, whatever your expertise is, share that wisdom with the world, because we all could use some help. All right. Until next time, take care.